Welcome to the Call to Farms podcast. This is a rallying cry to embrace the land, cultivate self-sufficiency, and sow the seeds for sustainability. Hi, I'm Tim Ing, and I'm your host today, and I'm joined with my lovely wife, Sophie.
Hey, everyone.
We're just on one of our weekly chats. And today we want to talk about, well, we've got a lot of things going on, right? We are going to be on the Thriving Farmers Veggie Summit that's coming up starting tomorrow, actually.
Yep, tomorrow until the 14th,
And
Sunday.
we're not talking about vegetables either. We're actually talking about how to find land so that you can build your homestead or build your small farm. I'm really excited about that.
Very exciting. And I come in to talk through the fun part of all of this,
Uh-huh.
the finances.
I'm glad one of us has fun talking about it.
Well,
Well,
we like to say that you have the fun job of shopping with our clients and
mhm,
you get to dream with them.
mhm.
And then I have the job to pull everybody back to reality and figure out how to pay the bill at the end of the day.
Someone has to. Well, actually, we've been getting a lot of inquiries from people who, well, all over the US, and they want to either buy land to build a homestead, but actually, more recently, a lot of people are thinking about just buying land as an investment because the dollar is waning and they're looking for alternate forms of investment, to diversify their funds. And land is a great way to diversify your investments. They're actually looking into purchasing land and leasing it out to farmers. It's a great idea. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, especially coming from the financial side, I can really see where our small farmers are having a lot of trouble. We've been specifically working with homesteaders and coming from the Bay Area, working with residential properties, residential clients, even commercial. But since we've been working and homesteading ourselves and feeling the pain points personally, when we were looking for land, luckily we had already bought land. We had a quarter acre and then we bought 6 acres in Lincoln, so north of Sacramento in California. But we knew what to look for because we had already run into some issues there in terms of water in California being a big issue. Having our farm, moving it across the country. But while we were shopping and looking for these homesteading communities in Texas, Oklahoma, and Tennessee, the realtors that we were working with, even though we got as close as possible to someone who was farming, they didn't know what to look for exactly, nor did they find us the right communities, which was the most challenging in Texas and Oklahoma because we were referred these real estate agents. Versus in Tennessee, I had sought out the community first and then found a realtor to just open doors for us because we knew what we wanted. We knew how to look at land. We knew how to look at the landscape, looking at water, access ways, security. And that's one of the biggest sticking points when we were trying to find land. And so a lot of these clients that are now coming in, and thank you for everybody who's listened and has felt inspired. That's so cool to hear that you're listening to our podcast and have reached out. We're excited to work with you just to hear that everyone is now moving in this direction, or at least maybe we've just opened the possibility to finally take that step because there's someone on their side that understands what they're looking for and what the challenges could be.
yeah, it's really humbling actually hearing all these people that are listening to our podcasts there. And definitely when we were planning on finding land, it was so frustrating because much like a lot of the clients that are calling in now, we plan things out. It's not like we want to tomorrow find land. We were planning these out months in advance and we were giving these realtors heads up and they were still showing us homes that we would have found in the Bay Area. Sure, they have a little bit more land, but neighbors are on top of one another. There were large electrical towers nearby, and there wasn't any natural water source nearby as well. And so it became so frustrating going through this process. I knew then, I'm like, you know what? We were helping veterans and giving veterans a voice in the Bay Area. You were helping them with the VA loans, and both of us, like a two-prong attack, educating listing agents and being able to win out on these multiple offer situations, which is so awesome.
I'm always rooting for the underdog, and I think you
Underdog,
do
yeah.
too, naturally, because I think we are the underdog.
Right. We are.
And
And so go ahead.
in most of the scenarios and situations in our life, we're often the underdog. I mean, especially like growing up as an immigrant in America and not having much of anything and not having much of any finances. It's like,
I love it. It's
I
like
know you love it.
a badge of honor to be like, I can take a veteran who is zero down and competing in probably one of the most competitive housing markets in the nation, the San Francisco Bay Area, and still winning out on a multiple offer. I mean, that's a huge win. I just want to celebrate that. And now helping out future homesteaders find that land and finding exactly what they want, and you setting the budget for them, and after you go through their finances, to be able to find that land and then to see them actually, like our recent couple when they were RVing for 3 years and to finally have a home base now, it's so fulfilling. I love what the land that they ended up on. I wish we bought it ourselves, that it was available for us, but these are like really awesome stories to see and to also help them out too, transforming their dirt in the soil and helping them grow food. It's really fulfilling. And I tell everyone this. It's like, oh, did you always want to be a farmer or a homesteader? Absolutely not. No. Just 2 or 3 years ago, we were in the Bay Area just thinking that's the American dream, working hard. And if we can go to Hawaii once a year, that's a win. And to now waking up to having to milk 3 cows and being out in the country, it's a lifestyle change that we've embraced because we did it out of necessity, not out of desire.
Mhm.
And it's all the better because I talk to a lot of future clients and I ask them this, what's sparking this move for you? Why are you moving out of the city? Why do you want to go to the country? Everyone has their own story to tell. It's really inspiring because some people may have illnesses and sickness and they need to be, they need to have fresh air and less chemicals and toxins. There are other people who just say, I'm tired. I want to have some freedom. I want to be able to grow my own food. I want to know that the food that's organic is truly organic. So it's really interesting. Everyone has their own story on why they answer the call to farms.
Hmm. That's a good one. Just working with veterans in California and here too, the biggest hurdle that we have to overcome is all of the different guidelines that are required of a VA loan. The things that they have to fix on a property has to be livable. And, the appraisal that comes back. First of all, the appraiser that is hired is a third party appraiser, much like the rest of the appraisers, but this is a specific one focused on VA. And there's also a stipulation in the VA contracts as well.
Yeah, there are some stipulations in the VA contracts, but I think there is just a misnomer where a lot of agents think that a VA deal is going to be a lot more difficult, and it's no more difficult than any other deal, really. And it really just is the passing that termite inspection.
That's because you're working with me as the lender who can really fight for our VA loans accepted. But typically, if you're working with a lender who hasn't worked with many VAs
They don't
or
want to do it. Yeah,
don't want to do it, it's a lot more complicated than necessary.
you'll
But
know, you'll know
mhm,
because they'll say it'll take 60 days to close. They don't even want to touch them,
yeah,
which is
and
why I like working with you, obviously, my spouse, but you get it done. And you get it done, if not the same amount of time faster than a conventional loan that you
right.
do. So 30 days or under. And that's the name of the game. You want to be competitive and put in a competitive offer. You can't have a handicap and say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm a VA. Can you just do it out of the goodness of your heart because I
No.
serve the country? No. At the end of the day, sellers want to get their money and they want to get their money on time. And so it has to be a competitive offer. And that's something that you offer to your clients.
Yeah. And so now we're seeing the same scenario play out for small farmers or homesteaders like ourselves.
Yeah.
I recently was contacted by our own farmer, and they were trying to reach out to see if they could find a place. And I, as a mortgage broker, have access to over 150 different banks. So I can sift a scenario through and find the best rates. And sometimes we can get creative. But in this scenario, the challenge was having this farmer be a 1099 employee with decreasing income over a 2-year span. And then on top of that, they had just started this farm 4 months prior. So to a bank will take a look at this buyer and say, this is way too risky. This is a brand new farm, brand new business, and we're seeing decreasing income. So it is deemed too risky. On top of that, there was no down payment or cash down payment as a viability. So really, a bank could not lend to this borrower. We tried everything down to like Farm Credit, which is, our local farm lender here. I have another raw land bank that I go with, and they just couldn't qualify as well. And so, crazy enough, I just really wanted to save these farmers, and there was an opportunity for us to jump in
Yeah.
as the lender.
Yeah.
And, it's really made me question this entire process, because I'm sure that there are others out there, maybe it's you listening, but if you are in a position to help a small farmer or even anybody, I think that's just you and I. If we're in a position to help, we will. It's just a matter of like, how much are we willing to help and what are we willing to put out there?
Yeah.
But it's really made me question this process of like, are there other potential people out there who don't want to farm, but are wanting to support our small farmers? I think about back in California and all of our past clients, that I think that they would be people who would want that, who would want to invest on a land to save a small farmer or to help a homesteading family. So these are just the things that have gone through my mind, because going through this experience, I've realized that our small farmers, we already knew this, but our small farmers are truly in trouble. The financial system, much like most systems, our food system, our education system, the healthcare system, technology, all these systems are really manipulated for the elite to win and have loopholes. But for the rest of us that abide by the rules, our small farmers who produce food for us on a local level, it's very concerning, because now we're getting a growing list, unfortunately, of smaller farmers, homesteading families that cannot get into the market. And you and I have talked about this very, very early on in our earlier episodes of the podcast, but we are seeing the squeeze and we're feeling the squeeze. I am, at least on the financial side, where I can't make the numbers work to save a small farmer or to even encourage a homesteading family. And I'm pulling every trick out of the hat to try to see if we could get them into some sort of like 1% down program, 3% down program. Land loans could be 35% down for a small farmer on land that's now costing between $10,000 an acre. It's hard. Plus, you're talking startup costs and resources, infrastructure, much less talking about a place for them to live, whether they got to go buy an RV, a tiny shed, build a home. You're already negative before you even start digging your hands into the soil.
I actually got on a call recently, and that was one of the questions someone asked is, what is the ratio of how much of whatever they have in their savings do they devote towards land and the rest towards assets? And what does that ratio look like? The way I answer that question is, well, you're either in one of two camps. You're either in the camp that thinks I should have been farming years ago and I'm way behind the power curve. I had this sense of urgency to go, go, go. And if you identify with that group, then you should put as little as possible on the land so that you can use your money on assets, infrastructure, so you can get going as soon as possible. Or you're in the other camp where you think, well, I just want to be prudent and I want to create a garden. I want to invest in some land. And a few months down the road, if not a year down the road, I'd like to have this garden going. So if you're in that camp, then
Mhm.
sure, put most of your money into land because you don't need to spend a bunch on infrastructure or building. But to your point, I just had two calls yesterday, actually, and these families that called me actually wanted to invest in land. They don't actually want to homestead right off the bat. They're actually asking me if I know farmers and homesteaders that could lease from them. So, absolutely, yes. That's exactly what we were just doing now with our farmers.
Yeah, it's an interesting landscape now that interest rates are at its highest. One of the things that when I got into lending in 2006, there's a saying that says you marry the home, but you date the rate. And that's what I've been advising for my borrowers. Personally, you and I have seen the rates at 2021, 2022 down to 2.25%. In fact, that's where we got our home at. We've refinanced 3 times within 18 months within 2021, 2022, and got us down to 2.25. But during that time, we had a lot of buyers, especially in the Bay Area, that were overbidding on $1 million home for 1.6.
Yeah.
And the reason why, and I explain this, and maybe if you're not in real estate, it's a little bit difficult to understand. But just as we're seeing now, you're seeing it all over the news, right? We're at 8.5% interest rate. What that means is there's a lot of buyers that are pulling back from the market because the interest rate is so high. But that
Mhm.
also means that the sellers are holding on to their property longer than they want because they can't get out and purchase something at 8.5%. 75% of Americans right now are in homes that are 4% and below for interest rate. What that means is now we're seeing this huge squeeze in the market. And everyone who back then who was jumping in at 2.25 or even 2.5 or even 3% at 1.6, the appraisals were coming back at a million because the house is only worth a million. But because everyone was now jumping in at 2.25, they had to outbid one another. And you actually won deals for our clients at 1.6. And I just thought it was insane. Of course, like I said, you're the one that has a fun job. You get to go out, you get to shop, but I have to close the deal. On my end, what I was seeing is appraisal concerns. Now the appraisals were coming back at a million, but our borrower, our buyer, our client had put in an offer for 1.6. So now they have to pay the difference up front, that's $600,000. And the reason why is because the lender will only lend up to as much as the value of the property itself. So if the value of the property is a million, the bank will only lend up to a million. If you've offered and are in contract for 1.6, you have to make up that difference. And so a lot of our buyers were paying extra and over the price of the value of the home. And between you and I, that's not the way that is ideal. But in a market where it is crazy like that and you have to buy, that's the market that we're talking about.
That's correct. It's only if they waive the appraisal contingency, they'd have to cover the difference. Now, I don't recall
And
we
in the Bay Area, we had to waive appraisal contingencies
they,
because it was so competitive.
they did, but I don't think I had a client that had to make up that big of a difference. And if they had a big discrepancy, I made sure that I would negotiate to at least have the seller try to meet in the middle, even though they didn't have to.
Yeah.
But I made sure that my clients understood the risk involved with even waiving the contingencies. And I did put a recent post up where no longer, even in the Bay Area, do you have to waive all contingencies anymore. It was like that 2 years ago. That was a Wild West. I'm just going to waive all contingencies, not have any security nets, safety nets. And I'd be just because I really want this house. Now you don't have to overpay for your home, but you're actually going to get the true value of the home. And actually, most of the time you can bid under asking for the home because to your point, a lot of the buyers are sitting on the sidelines and they're waiting for the elections. They're waiting for something to happen. And this is the time to act when most people are sitting. This is the time we like to act.
Warren Buffett had a quote too, and one of our borrowers just told me about it, but it's basically like when people are running out, that's when you run in.
Yeah, yeah.
This is that kind of market where, where, like I said, you marry the home, you date the rate. The way that the market looks like right now, it is very gnarly with high interest rates, and everyone is so afraid to buy. It is scary. It is very scary. However, at this point in the market, this is the price that is closest to market value. So you're going to get the home at what it's worth right now. And when rates drop, that is when you have an opportunity to refinance. And so that's where that whole date the rate comes into play, because at least at that point, you are not overpaying for the price of the home. Because now, if you've purchased a home that was over asking, significantly over asking because you were in a bidding war several years ago, I would question to see if the equity either stayed the same or is now under. Right. And so that's the fine balance. And the way that I see the market this coming year or this year is that even if the rates drop slightly, I really truly feel, I mean, maybe it's with the amount of people that we're talking to, and it's just been 10 days now since the beginning of the year. I really feel like once rates drop, we're going to be having an influx of people coming back in, even on a slight interest rate drop, because there's so many people waiting on the sidelines in the last year. They're hot.
Yeah, they're hungry, definitely.
And especially with homesteading or looking for land, it doesn't come up often because they're not making more land. They're making more houses in the city, but the land is where I'd say, I mean, depending where it is, what's available, pasture, more wooded, is there any water, is there irrigation, things like that, that maybe you can speak to there. But there's not going to be a lot of land. And one of the things that I've heard, and, is the expectation of having us find the perfect homestead for you. I think we're working on that, but at the same time, like knowing your budget and being completely realistic with your budget and working with me to find out what that budget is key. And then working with you and your team to find that homestead where it makes sense within the budget. And you can talk about this, but maybe 10 out of 10, you can't get all your things because of your budget, right? But maybe you can wiggle on a couple of things and you have to be okay with it. There's not going to be the perfect property unless you're willing to pay for that. And
yeah, because I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just talking a lot of money because it's like 10,000 an acre right now at a minimum.
At least, yeah. And it goes against actually the whole school of homestead thought where you just make use of what you've got. And that's, to be scrappy. I think you gave me the term like crunchy mom when we were like getting into homesteading. But everyone has like a dream list of what they're looking for in land. And surprisingly, it all starts looking the same. But it varies based on their budget. You just have to make the best out of what you've got in your given situation. Maybe you have to sell a home. Maybe you only have so much, and maybe based on age, you don't want to have a huge garden anyways. Like there's a misnomer that you have to have acres upon acres. You don't. We were fine just literally a quarter of an acre is enough for feeding a family, like a family of four, for instance. You don't have to have all these things that if you go to a homestead festival or a conference and you're seeing all these things and all these animals and livestock, you don't have to have all of this. And that's why we talk about being in community so that you don't have to raise everything, right?
Yeah, right. And even if you have enough land to raise all the food and the animals, is that something really that you want to do all by yourself, right? And I want to just caveat to reference, if you're new to our channel, new to this podcast, check out the episode that I recorded with Joel Salatin of Polyface Farms, We both talk about how to kind of get over that hurdle of the analysis by paralysis. And that's episode 14 on Call to Farms. It's our top episode on the show and highly recommend it. We refer this episode to a lot of our new clients who hadn't heard or hasn't come by through our podcast, but just loaded with inspiration in that podcast and a lot of sage advice. Joel Salatin is one of our mentors, and he is also a huge endorsement for the cookbook and our style of living in our entire family.
Yeah, it's a great episode. You should check it out if you haven't listened to it already. A lot of great, helpful tips and advice there. But like what you were just mentioning earlier about having creative financing to purchase land, you need to exercise creative homesteading skills. And oftentimes I just want to ask, like, what are your homesteading goals? What do you want to do? Okay, you want to buy land for what? I know Joel says it's a homesteading tsunami that's coming, but it's a lifestyle change, right? I mean, for us, it was like a almost a 180 of how we lived life in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley to now living life in the mountains. It's totally different, but we embrace the community and we love helping one another. And I love the fact that we're able to help these farmers now with this land purchase. Why not help out the local farmers? Because we love their products. We know how they grow food with integrity and they do regenerative farming practices. And we are 100% behind how they raise their crops. We eat their produce and we back them 100%. And so if we have this opportunity to be able to provide them with some land to grow this produce and be able to provide it to the community, which is essentially a food desert where a lot of people have to go grocery shopping at the Dollar General, then why not? Like that's something that's great. I think that should be something that's celebrated. And I think more and more people, which I can tell you right now, I'm getting calls. How are they finding us online and on our podcast? But thank you for listening in. Like I said, it's very humbling. We started this podcast really for our children so they didn't think we were nuts. But they're calling in now. They're saying, like, we want to invest in land. We want to be able to help out other farmers too. I'm seeing a movement here, and it's undeniable. People are looking to put their money, they're not putting it in stock markets anymore. Maybe they're looking at crypto and they're also looking at land. They're looking at assets. Things are not getting cheaper, especially with all this hyperinflation going on. They need to be able to put their money in the assets.
They're also coming in from the cookbook, believe it or not. The phone call that I had today that I know he spoke with you already,
Yeah.
he was gifted the Nourishing Asian Kitchen cookbook over the holidays and found our blog, got to our website, and then our podcast, has listened to a few episodes and reached out to you. And that's just one of very many people who have come by way. And it's just very interesting because since January, maybe as they read the book and have really thought about what they want to do for 2024, there's already been a pretty huge push that I told you this is going to be a pretty busy year for us and we'll have to start expanding our team. And I just got another referral out in Florida by a good real estate agent out there, a good friend of mine. I've known him for a long time. It's just very, very rewarding to be able to be in a position to help others that are on our side. When I was coming from tech and left the tech world, I kept thinking, where are all the good guys? I no longer want to create solutions for this beast system that we're in. You know, I'm continuing to use my marketing skills and all my skills combined to build out this beast system. And I kept waiting and wondering where are the good guys? Where are the guys on the other side? And you got to get right with the Lord. But you have got to realize that the only way out of this is to go through the fire together. We're blessed to be in a position to be able to steward a lot of people who are interested in buying more land or being in a position to farm so that they can provide better for their community. And man, I just love this saving the small farmer because I have no other solution. I'm now realizing that they're going to be one of very many, and our small farmers need help.
Yeah, they're one of many, and it's a way to fight against the man and just find an alternate as we build this alternate system because our food system is so fragile as we experienced that anything that we can do to take back, reclaim land. So, I mean, even in less than 2 years of being out in East Tennessee, we've already helped reclaim over 100 acres and helped several families purchase land alone. And that already is a huge win. Anything that we can do, to bring the power back to us and back to the people so that we can actually have control over what we eat. And I actually kind of laugh because we're from Silicon Valley, we're foodies, but now we're helping other people too to grow delicious, nutritious food. So it's a win-win all around. I mean, for the whole community, why not? Everyone needs to get healthier. And
This is just how we're going to fight back
yeah,
against the system. Is, the system that wants you sick, the system that wants you angry, the system that wants you to play victim all the time, blaming each other, fighting each other. This is the system. This is where they want you, in a low frequency and low vibration. And I just refuse to accept any of that. Once you become aware of this, you're just not going to play their game.
yeah.
And the only way forward is to just douse everyone with love and nourishment.
Mhm.
And that includes improving their health.
Yeah.
And that starts with soil, really, really good soil.
Mhm. And this is our first podcast of 2024, right?
Yes, it is.
So, and it's so fitting. I think this is going to be a great year. We're going to make it a great year. I don't care what naysayers may say about 2024, but we're going to just grab control over it. We're going to keep doing what we're doing, growing food, buying land, helping others. And this is all we can control, really.
Bringing it back, it has to be through lots and lots of prayer. I think we've prayed a lot in the first 7 days of this year, really just full on praying for the state of the nation, praying for one another, praying for the community, praying for protection,
Yeah.
and praying for victory over everything that we're all doing. Because, I mean, the reality is, it is rough out there. The world is a weird place right now. It's in a very, very weird place. And this year is going to get more and more weird. So, whatever we can do to help you on this journey, contact us, let us know. But I'm encouraged by the conversations that we've had so far this year. Very, very encouraged to hear that people are looking for, like, we have not even talked about these, you and I, out in public yet. This is just something that you and I have talked about because we've been hearing enough in the last couple of days. And literally my last two phone calls today were, man, I would just love to put some money in to some sort of fund and help a farmer buy their greenhouse. That's great.
Yeah.
Let's figure out how to make that work. I don't know, but
Crowdfund it.
how do we, yeah, crowdfund it? Absolutely. And, maybe there's something there. I think it's going to be really interesting and really great to see all of the communities, not just our local community, but other communities around the world that we can tap into. The book is going to be international very soon, and it would be great to have them be a part of the movement that we're trying to save those who are trying to answer the call to farms. And as it gets more and more tough throughout the year, we want to help position others where they can give if they feel led, and bless others who are going to be providing nourishing quality food for their local communities wherever they are.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, Yah has it, it's all under his control, and we're just going to do the best that we can to help. And like you said, just love on one another. That's all we can do, rather than sit and worry and wait for life to happen this year. I love this Call to Farms podcast, and I love that people are just reaching out to us and saying that they're just being inspired by some of the stuff that we're talking about. I mean, we're just like a few steps ahead of you guys, and we want to be able to share what we've gone through because we moved at lightning quick Silicon Valley speed, but we've stumbled along the way and we've had to learn some really hard lessons. And we don't want any of you to have to do that, especially if you're in that camp thinking, I should have been growing food years ago. Well, we want to help you get there. We want to help you get there as fast as possible. And any tips and advice that we can provide through this podcast or through some of the guests that we've been interviewing as well, then so be it. And like that's great. And I hope everyone has the ability to farm wherever they live. So if you're interested in learning more about buying land or wherever you're at, wherever you're looking, I have a list of vetted realtors who homestead. Reach out to me on homesteadingrealtor.com and be sure to reach out to Sophie. She'll run through scenarios for you so you can figure out what's going to work with your family's budget. And that's freedomfundings.com. We both have Instagrams. And if you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to share it out with your friends and family. We would greatly appreciate it. Be sure to subscribe as well. And check out our websites. We're going to be doing some revamping of our websites. A lot of big things happening in 2024. We're looking forward to it. It's going to be a year of growth. And it's definitely a year of abundance mindset.
Yep.
So thanks so much. And we hope all of you stay healthy.
Yep. Thank you.